Yes, we're coming in hot this morning with Diane Reeves singing Endangered Species. You are listening to Community Voices right here live at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. I am your host, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise, and I just want to remind you that we are so grateful. We are so grateful that you stopped by right here to see us this morning, to join us this morning. The phone lines are already open at 501-433-0088. The phone lines are open at 501-433-0088. So you can join this conversation where we center Blackness in the context of the human story. And we do that in the spirit of Sawubona, that spirit that reminds us that we are one. We are bound together by our humanity. And there's nothing that we can do about that. But we can do something about the way we interact with each other, human to human. And that's what the conversations are rooted in. And so we are glad that you are here. I am not alone in the studio. Your co-host is live with me right here. So I want to make sure I give him an opportunity to greet you. So here is your pastor, Toney Orr.
Oh, thank you, Denise. Good morning, everyone. Just want to remind everybody that we are in Pledge Drive, and we're doing something a little different this Pledge Drive. We're in Pledge Drive for the whole month of August. The whole month of August. This is the 41st, the anniversary month for KABF. 41 years on the 30th of August. It will be 41 years that we have been on the air. And so we're doing a whole month of Pledge Drive. And always doing Pledge Drive. If you have a business, you're an entrepreneur, you want to get some information out, we do have a Pledge Drive special for $150. You get 20 60-second spots. So that's 20 minutes of airtime for $150. You can't beat that anywhere. And it's always, for anybody who gives a donation of $500 or more, you get your name inscribed on our Zach Collette, John Kane plaque here in the studio. Quite a few people have put their names up there, including Ward 1 Director.
Black man politician.
Yeah, he made sure he got his name up there. So just I want you to just be aware of what we're doing this whole month. And thank you for tuning in to Community Voices.
Diane Reeves is singing about being an endangered species, and in no way is she likening herself to any kind of animals that you would see on a safari or something like that, not in terms of how she looks or how she feels or anything like that. But when you think about endangered species in that way, those animals that are being protected, it's because they are at high risk. It's because of who they are as animals that somebody wants them so badly that they are willing to break all of the rules. They are willing to they're willing to just do whatever it takes to get what they want from these animals. And so they have to be protected, because if not, then humans will just have their way with them. And I thought about that as I was listening to her song, because she says, I am a woman, I am an artist. So she's saying that she is unique. There's something about her as Diane Reeves that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. She's not just a common artist. She's just not a normal artist. She's just not a round the way girl. She is special. She is somebody, and she knows that. And so that's what she's saying. She said, I'm at high risk because if I do not protect my craft, if I do not protect myself, then somebody will just come along and do whatever they want to do to get rid of me or to use me or to exploit me, all of those things. And I couldn't help but lift those words up out of the song that's rooted and grounded in who she is as a person and an artist, and think about who we are as a collective as it relates to the Black nation. I feel like we could say the same thing, that we are an endangered species, that we are at high risk because this world is coming for us at every turn, and they are willing to do whatever it takes, defy the rules, break the rules, create the rules, make up the rules, whatever they can do to get rid of us, to exploit us, to use us. And I feel like that is the same thing that is happening to us. So I want us to be thinking about that today, about how we are at risk. When you think about the animals that are in danger, there are categories kind of about the way that they are being threatened. And one of the ways that they are being threatened is just their survival. Their survival as a whole is being threatened. It's being threatened by the loss of habitat. It's being threatened by over exploitation. It's being threatened by pollution. It's being threatened by climate change. And I feel the same way about the Black nation, that we've been fighting housing discrimination since the inception of this country, over exploitation, any kind of way that the system of whiteness, the system of white inhumanity can figure out how to make a dollar, even a dime, even a penny off of our bodies, they will do that. So the over exploitation fits us as well. Pollution, when we think about the way that this world is designed, so that in certain neighborhoods that have high populations of Black people, they build those projects, they build those housing complexes in areas that are by some kind of factory or some kind of industrial machine that will pollute the air, so that our children have asthma, so that we have problems with our lungs. All of that is happening. It's been happening and continues to happen. And climate change absolutely affects all of us. So if it affects white folks, it absolutely affects Black folks. And so I felt like this song was important for us to think about the fact that we are at risk. We are at high risk. Our survival is being threatened every day. And what are we going to do? And so what Diane Reeves says is, I'm going to remind myself of who I am. I'm going to remind myself that I have a voice. I'm going to remind myself that I know where my voice belongs, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to raise up. I'm going to resist. I'm going to be who I was created to be. So I just felt like we wanted to get started with that song, Endangered Species. And I want to also root the conversation in our EJI tidbit for today. So on August 4th, 1964, following several weeks of national news coverage and an intensive search by federal authorities, the bodies of civil rights workers Michael Schwerner, James Chaney, and Andrew Goodman were found in Longdale, Mississippi. The three men who went missing after being released from a local Mississippi jail had been shot to death and buried alive in a shallow grave. That happened on August the 4th, 1964. These men, two of them white, one of them Black, they were working to organize voters so that they could get out the Black vote. And the KKK hated them for it, so much so that they became endangered species. They were at risk, and they knew that they were at risk, but they did the work anyway, and they gave their lives for it. And they ended up being shot to death and buried in a shallow grave. So we're going to be talking about both of those things, being an endangered species, rooted in the work that we have to do in the face of being high risk.
Yeah, and I agree. When you start talking about being at high risk, we know that Black people as a whole have always been the target for the power structure in this country and in this world. And then when you look at it, and as you were talking, I was thinking about what's going on in Gaza, where the Israeli president, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who refused to admit that there is starvation going on in Gaza, that refused to admit that genocide is going on in Gaza. And then when you couple that with what's going on in this country, with so many protections are being stripped away, so many rules are being stripped away, so many things that so many people depend on to survive. There are a lot of people when you start talking about endangered species, all they're doing when it comes to animals, they're just trying to survive. And so when you look at black people, when you look at brown people, when you look at poor white people who are just trying to survive, and the power structure is doing everything it can to not only target, but in reality, trying to make it where it's almost virtually impossible to survive. And so that's when your voices have to rise up. That's when action has to be taken. And I think that's the thing that I'm hearing from Diane Reeves is that, hey, I'm going to do something. What are you going to do?
So I was thinking about, I've still been thinking about this return to the land movement that's happening, that's causing this development to be built in Arkansas. These outside people have come in to build this development. And again, I keep saying that I'm not messed up about, them wanting to build. I'm not really going to spend time talking about that. But I do want to see if we can connect some dots as to how we got to this place where these people believe that it is okay, that they have a right, that they are entitled, that they are privileged enough to say, this world is mine, and I am going to create a space just for us to remind you that this world is mine. And for me, everything, when I say everything, I mean everything goes back to the system of enslavement on this soil. People, when we talk about American slavery, people want to bring in slavery from all of these different places, want to talk about what other people did. I'm not talking about that. That's a conversation that we can have, but that's not a conversation that I'm having right now. I'm talking about the system of enslavement on American soil. And that's where everything for me begins. That's not where my life as a member of the African diaspora begins, but this conversation that we're having, that's where it's going to begin. Caller, you're live on the air. Thanks for calling Community Voices.
I hear about I see the Palestine issues, all of that. Me personally, I have a problem with having sympathy for Palestinians or anyone who have mistreated my people all over the planet. They weren't no resident there neither, no more than other people were. So I can't sympathize. And I know it's 10,000 maybe and so after people dying every day from starvation. But one time it was over a million a day. And none of these people seem to help. So I really ain't with the sympathy thing, Now, I'm going to tell you something. I know you all may know this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that we could change this overnight if we wanted to. Now, what was he saying? He was saying, we are the first original people with the powerful influence over the universe. We can change just the direction of our thoughts. We can change it, but we don't want to change it. We just keep want to hold on to this and hold on to this and hold on to it, and we keep suffering for it. We don't want to even change our thinking, and that's all I got to say, sisters, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, I've heard that. I've been involved in those conversations before about how people are sympathizing or empathizing with the people that are in Gaza, that are in Palestine. And I feel like the only thing that I want to add to that part of the conversation is that that's one of the traits that we have as a Black nation, that our heart always goes out to everybody else. We are always making room for everybody else. We are always giving ourselves over to everybody else. We're always making sure that everybody else is okay. And I think we do it with a mindset that if I do this for you, then you will see my good works. And when it is time for you to return the respond in kind, that you will. But this world continues to show the Black nation that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how kind you are. It doesn't matter how nice you are. It doesn't matter how sympathetic or empathetic you are. We are not going to raise ourselves up to come to your defense in the same way. We're not going to do it. And so since we see the world responding to us in that way, why do we continue to put ourselves out there? Why do we continue to show up for folks when we know that they're not going to show up for us. And so that is part of the conversation that we continue to have as it relates to any other population of people. Some people talk about it as it relates to immigration, and some people are talking about it as it relates to the war in Gaza. So I've heard that conversation before. So I appreciate you bringing it in so that other people can think about that. And then if you have a comment as well, the phone lines are absolutely open at 501-433-0088, 501-433-0088. And then the caller goes on to talk about how we have this mind. If we could change our minds, then we could change the world. But it starts with us first realizing and being able to name that our minds need to change. And for me right now, that fits into what we're saying when I was saying that everything goes back to the system of enslavement. And one of the things that happened during the system of enslavement was that we were indoctrinated with what we now call conservative Christianity. We didn't call it conservative Christianity then, but we can call it that now, where that Christianity became this tool that was used to control our bodies. And one of the ways that they did that during the system of enslavement was to create, to make up, to imagine these places, one of them called heaven and one of them called hell, and to tell and to intimidate and to traumatize the people who were enslaved into believing that there is hope. If you just hope in something, you hope in this heaven, then and you do what I tell you to do. If you are considered a good slave, then heaven will be your home. And then if you are not considered a good slave, then you have to fear hell. And so this control over our bodies with this religion is something that some of us continue to carry today. And so we still have this way of thinking, going back to what the caller said, we have adopted this way of thinking that every day I've got to wake up and prove to the system of whiteness, because we've painted Jesus white, so the world has. So I got to prove to this white man that I'm good, and I got to spend all my life trying to prove that I'm good so that I can get to this heaven. And so everything is about me making sure that I'm constantly working on my body, constantly working as hard as I can, constantly looking at, especially when it comes to women, I got to think about my hair, I got to think about my lashes, I got to think about my nails, I got to think about my weight, I got to think about my toes, I got to think about my face. All of these things that we have to do to our bodies to make sure that we are in the best position for this world so that they can declare that we are good, so that heaven is our home. We are still caught up in that mindset that we need permission from somebody to be who we are. And Diane Reeves said, no, I don't. I'm not you. I wasn't created to be you. I have no desire to be you. I'm not trying to be like you. I'm not comparing myself to you. I know who I am as unique. I know who I am as divine. And I'm going to raise up and stand firm 10 toes down on that. And that is what's going to inspire me. That's what's going to motivate me. You're not going to scare me. I'm not going to live my life being shrouded in this fear that you've created with these places that you made up. I'm not going to do it. So if we could say to ourselves, hey, maybe I need to shift my mindset. Because first of all, you got to think that you need a shift. And all of us do, especially Black folks. If you can get there, then we'll be one step closer to changing this world.
Yeah, and we talked about this this song that I forget who made the song, but it's a phrase that is used a lot. Free your mind and the rest will follow.
In vogue.
Yeah, and so that's one of the hardest things to do for people, is to free their minds, especially when it comes to Black people, is to free their minds. And because it's so amazing and hypocritical when you hear, especially our governor and other places, talk about indoctrination. To me, indoctrination is nothing but another word for brainwashing. If you can brainwash people to believe a certain thing, then they become trapped in that certain thing, able to come outside the box and truly be free. And I understand everybody's idea of freedom is different. Everybody's outlook on freedom is different. But the number one thing is you can ever start to change. And change is difficult for a lot of people. especially with Black people, it's very difficult. Change is difficult for poor white people because they have a mindset of, like I said, this brainwashing that says that this is who you are, this is what you're supposed to be, and this is how you're supposed to live. And the minute you become, you start to change, then you are looked upon as something different, and then you become a target. But at the end of the day, if you want to see things differently, then you have to have that mindset, you have to have that change, and you have to stand on that change.
When you mentioned poor white people, it reminded me of a conversation I was having with Ezekiel offline week. And one of what came up for us is a question that I want to pose to you, Toney, is when you, because a lot of times, I declare at the beginning of the show, if I don't forget, but most of the time I declare at the beginning of the show that we're going to center Blackness in this space. Like that's what we're going to do, is we're going to center Blackness as part of the human story. And you do that with me. And then you always, I don't want to say always, but a lot of the time, a good percentage of the time, you also add in poor white people. And so the question became, do you, in your mind, when you think about the situation and the circumstances of the Black nation, do you feel like poor white people are having the same experience as Black folks?
I believe poor people are having the same experience. I know.
Hold on just a minute. Caller, you're live on the air, KABF at 8.3. Thanks for calling Community Voices.
Yes, to make your kids, for me to have give some input on your question. The worst white person, the worst murderer, the worst whatever kind of white person it is in his thinking, he's superior over any Black person. I don't care if it's the richest Black person. White people don't think like we think. They are over you. Now I'm gonna bring up another subject here. In our Christian churches, we have pastors basically teaching King James, Standard Bible, this kind of Bible, and all these Bibles. But we have a Ethiopian Bible that's older than all of them. All of them. But I have never even been in a church with Black people that they even mention it. And you can buy them. They're kind of expensive. But I don't see why you keep teaching something that you know. You can check Christianity out on the white people. Is the most vicious thing ever been on the planet. Why are you still trying to follow their book? Why I don't understand our and then some of them, oh well, I'm a Mason, I'm in this fraternity. No, you're a gatekeeper, that's what the hell you really is, and the preachers is too. If you don't got a secret that you gonna keep from your people but to advance them, you is worse than a white man. Because Black people are trusting you. They're listening to you to lead them, and you say, which you really don't need no damn leader. You need to go in yourself and learn how to go lead your own self. Be your own God. Because that was what God really meant. It didn't mean what we called it. It didn't mean creator. It meant one who could guide you. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, caller. Appreciate that. Okay, Toney, so the question on the table, on the floor is, do you feel like poor white people are having the same experience as Black folks?
So it goes back to what I said earlier about the brainwash. If you can brainwash people to believe a certain thing, and yes, I will agree that poor white people believe that no matter what, that they're better than, as the caller said, better than any Black person on the face of this earth. But in reality, they are still, they're poor just like a Black person or just like a Hispanic person. They're still poor. And because of that divide in their thinking, you can never move forward. If you look at all the great revolutions, The reason they happen because people at the bottom decided that, you know what, we are all facing the same thing. We are all facing extinction. We are all facing this this terribleness. We're all facing this, and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, I think that one could argue that even though white people may be poor and Black people may be poor, at the end of this systemic day, the way that the system of white inhumanity is set up, if those two people are standing side by side as poor people, first of all, the world is not going to recognize their poverty because they're not going to be concerned about that. The world is going to recognize what they perceive to be their race, and the white person is going to be favored. So before you can even talk about or even have a conversation about socioeconomic status, the white person is already put up on a pedestal over this particular Black person. And so to act like, or to think that just because that it doesn't matter whether you're Black or white, if you're poor, we're going through the same thing, then I would say that that's brainwashing for you to believe that white people are just like us. Because if they are given an opportunity, if you give them an opportunity to turn their back, they're not going to say, oh, my brother, since we both since we both poor, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to stand with you. I'm going to die with you. So when we go back to the EJI tidbit for today. So one of the three men that was killed was Michael Schwerner. His wife's name is Rita. And what she brought up was that even though there was a Black man, the Black man was James. The Black man that was killed, his name is James Chaney. So the white man, Michael Schwerner, the other white man, Andrew Goodman, but James Chaney was the Black man. So there was this huge, they were looking for him, looking for these workers. But really what Schwerner's wife, Rita, what she raises up the issue that if we were talking about only Black people that had been killed in Mississippi, there would not be any national coverage. There would not be a conversation. There would not be a search. So even though all three of these men are doing the same work, all three of these men are part of the same organization, all three of these men are putting their lives on the line, nobody's life mattered except the two white men. And so you can't say that, oh, well, see, they were doing the same thing, so they were having the same experience. That's not the case. Race always divides, and we always, as people, we've shown ourselves to be ones that favor that divide. So if any chance a white person has to use their privilege, that's what they're gonna do, and they're gonna leave you behind, regardless of the fact that we have the same whatever, whether it's socioeconomic status, the same educational level, whatever it is. They will leave you in a minute. My mama taught me that in college. I wanted to go home with my roommates. I was going to the University of Mississippi, and I had two white roommates, and one of them was from Texas, and both of us were going to go to Texas. And my mama and I asked permission to go, and she said no. And I was like, why? And she said to me, listen, there is always an invisible line in the sand. And when it comes down to it, white people are not going to cross it for you, period. So I'm not going to let you put yourself in a situation where you might have to see that and I'm not there. So you are going to have to learn that lesson, and you need to learn it now. And we are still dealing with that, because even when we talk about people who have more knowledge about the system of white inhumanity, they can recognize they're white people, they're non-Black people, they can recognize it. But what they're not doing is they don't put their bodies on the line the same way. They don't put their bodies on the line with us. We have people historically that have done that. We absolutely have non-Black people who have come alongside Black folks, and they have died with us. That's true. But where are we seeing that today? Where are we seeing folks that say, yeah, I'm so interested in the spirit of Sawubona for the Black nation that I'm willing to die with you. They ain't going that far. And I think that is what I feel like that's what the conversation I was having with Ezekiel is about, understanding that, because I think that we believe that no. They realize that we're in the same boat. So they're going to help us just like we would help them. And that is not the case. Caller, you're live on the air at KABF at 8.3. Thanks for calling Community Voices.
You're more than welcome. Good morning, sister.
Hey, Ezekiel.
Those on web and the listening audience. I briefly would just like to say this. Inclusion will bear what's really going on. You can look at what's included in an effort. The effort to get justice, if you will, and peace is evident. After 300 or 400 years of chattel slavery, building the United States of America. When I say building the United States of America, I mean the bridges across the rivers, the buildings that house the great halls of justice and executive powers and all different types of industrial revolution powers, everything from the plants, if you will. That's a phrase that the botanist, the peanut man, George Washington Carver, that was if he looked at things like they were plants. And we know the mass production that made this country great, the revolutionary, industrial, revolutionary project that made this country great. We give credit to Alexander Graham Bell. We give credit to Thomas Edison. We give credit to Benjamin Franklin. But you never hear about Benjamin Banneker or any of the slaves, if you will, of those African men who were building this nation, from the forts in St. Augustine, Florida, that was built by Africans back in between 1590 something to the 1600s. The French and the Spanish were fighting over who was going to control that part of the New World. But to make a long story short, we know who built all of this for nothing. Everybody else got paid. Black people or African folks never received anything monetarily. Still have not. Now, talk about inclusion. Where are the so-called friends of the black folks when it comes to reparations? Something that certainly will put you in a better position to achieve justice and peace. We don't have anyone from poor white folks fighting alongside of us for reparations. Like I said, this is the greatest country in the world today. It's built up like Babylonians were built up. Only they did it with slavery in the United States and the so-called New World, the conquest, the Europeans dividing everything they could and then went back over to Africa and carved it up after they shipped all of the Africans to different parts of the so-called New World to build and they extorted their wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in their labor. You don't hear anybody say anything about reparations, and you look around and you see all of these big structures, elevators going from thousands of feet underground to reaching up into the heavens, if you will. We don't control any of this. We don't have an inkling of it. We get on a stage and buck dance, get on a court and show out athletically, get on a field and do like the gladiators, and we'll get rewarded and held in high esteem. But at no time will the population, including the poor whites, the average whites, and the rich whites, get together and say, well, we're so proud of what you've done for us, we're going to repair the harm that we did to you as a matter of good faith. We want you to know that we appreciate what you did. You can see we appreciate it because we lavish and take credit for everything that you did, and we know that we owe you a debt. But at no time will you see any participation, if you will, of the whole of the white folks now. it comes to lynching, you'll have poor whites, middle class whites, and rich whites all lynching the same black folks. And those who oppose their oppressive and their supremacist type endeavors, like denying folks to vote. They kill white women down there for helping black folks try to vote. Anybody got in their way, they kill them. But you still don't see the so-called poor white, the so-called middle-class white, the so-called rich white come together to order for reparations for the hundreds of years of slavery that built this country and denying all of the achievements of those who came over here with their knowledge, wisdom, and understanding on how to build these cities and build these bridges and forts and what have you. They don't get credit for it. They took everything from you and then lied about it. So that's why it's important to tell the truth and to make it known that it's a black thing, if you will, or an African thing, whatever euphemism you want to use to let folks know just who suffered from slavery and who profited, if you will, on one or the other. Someone profited from it, someone suffered from it. So we know who suffered from it, and we certainly know who profited from it, and we need to keep those perspectives out there. As far as the Palestinians go, the gentleman mentioned Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There was a paper called Muhammad Speaks, and every edition of Muhammad Speaks, there were Arab journalists who chronicled what was going on in Palestine and the so-called Middle East. In every edition of the Muhammad Speaks, there were journalists. This was back in the 1960s and the 1970s. There were journalists from that part of Africa, if you will, who were included in that publication. So I just want to make that known. And if we don't teach these things to folks, and people don't like to read, and young people today are as far removed from politics or reality as the heavens are from the planet Earth. So think about that. We don't have inclusion of our young people to carry on to know of these things that Sister Denise is telling us today that happened 60 years ago, or what happened before then. And those are the things that need to be front and center in order for us to have a good perspective. And our young people need to be taught everything concerning the have and the have-nots, the victims and those who were the perpetrators. And with that, I'll get off there and listen to the comments. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure I do this before I forget, because when I was talking about Rita Schwarner saying that this was Michael Schwarner's wife, saying that if there had only been Black people who were killed, there would not have been a national uprising about it. They would not have been looking and searching as hard. So as they were looking for these three men, we're talking about Michael Schwarner and James Chaney and Andrew Goodman, they also found two other Black men who had been murdered the month before, and no one had taken the time to care or to look for them or to give their family any kind of answers, any kind of closure. I don't really believe in closure, but some kind of grace in knowing that they have found their loved ones. And those two men were Henry D. and Charles Moore. So I wanted to make sure that I brought their names into the space and honored them, because they were also buried in the ground in Mississippi and nobody cared because they were Black. So I want to make sure that I do that before. I was thinking about it earlier, but I didn't want to forget. And so I think that is important for us to, we're talking about, so Ezekiel looked at it as inclusion. Like if you're gonna talk about inclusion and you're gonna bring in all of the people, then we need to talk about what that means, what impact that has on us. So if you want to join everybody together, well, then let's have a real conversation about what it means to be together. Caller, you're live on the air. Thanks for calling Community Voices.
It bothers you. Jonathan Ali Muhammad taught do for self. Now, all the things that we have did for all the people all over the planet, now it's space to it today out there. Now, we did all that. Now, you can't do for self if you don't know yourself. It eroded in our souls through the years. And if we don't exercise our truth, just imagine if we are doing what our very souls tell us to do, and we come together and do this, look how much better the planet would be. We done did all this. We got so many different inventions and still going on that bit. They wouldn't have got out of space to know even that black woman doing the mathematical equations and stuff. They wouldn't, I mean, but see, we don't know about the black man that cell phone. We don't know nothing about all this stuff. We don't know how great we really is, and nobody is telling, hey, man, we got all kinds of things enough to do everything we need to do. Now it's always, you know how many times I can go into a store and I can tell a white person exactly what I want as clear as I possibly can in English, and he got to ask me 3 or 4 times what the hell I said, because in his mind I'm already wrong. And you know, I go through that, I experience that every day. Y'all, oh, brother, you said, I said about people coming together and one people, the same brother that spoke. And what he said was, good luck with that. And I agree 100% with that. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen as far as I can understand. He opened my eyes up just by saying that, whether you know it or not. Good thing.
Appreciate your caller. Yeah, I think I agree that we if we're going to spend our time trying to get white people to understand that there is something that binds us together, so we can hope that they will work with us to help us get to the point where we are, that the relationship with this world, with this country, is repaired through reparations, then I think I do believe that is a lost cause. And I think that when the caller says that if we would listen to our souls, we have to. I'm going to always keep this at the forefront of our minds about the religion, and particularly the religion of Christianity. It's difficult to listen to your soul when you believe that you are a sinner. If you wake up every day telling yourself that you're only a sinner saved by grace and you need the Lord because you can't do anything then if you continue with that mindset, you cannot sit with yourself. You cannot hear yourself. It's too much noise coming from the fact that you think you owe somebody some kind of behavior so that you can be granted good, and then heaven may be your home. And so when I think about this whole sinning thing, I feel like it's one of the greatest hustles of all. Because if you read the Bible says that Jesus took all the sins of the world on him when he died. This is what the Bible says. Jesus took all the sins of the world on him when he died. He died with all of the sins. Then it says he rose again, and now he sits at the right hand. This is the creed, the Apostles' Creed. Sits at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. So what are we saying? So he took the sin and brought them back? Why would he die for our sins and then bring them back? So this idea of sinning is the greatest hustle, because now all the churches are filled with people who believe they sinners and now they need help, when really all you need to know is who you are. You are divine and you are now endangered. And you got to figure out how to stay alive, because they are coming for you at every turn. How do you stay alive? By standing firm on what you know. And what do you know? What you learn. And that's why we have these conversations, to educate you, to inform you. That's what we do right here at KABF at 8.3 FM.
And the last statement that you just made, I agree. At the core of who I am, I believe in humanity. I believe that we're all connected as humans. But on the same token, I can see reality. And just listen to the conversation this morning made me think about a movie, The Avengers, the last movie in the franchise called Endgame. And in reality, we are in the Endgame. And part of that, the base of that movie was that this person, the villain, wanted to rewrite the history. He wanted to change history to where it portrayed what he felt like history should look like. And so now, if you look at what's going on, and when they say art imitates life or life imitates art, there is this systematic rewriting. What we're talking about now, what we talk about on Community Voices and what people call in to talk about, we're talking about this. We're talking about how the system of enslavement, how this country was built, how that there is this fight that we have to go through as Black people to be recognized, to be valued, and now they're trying to rewrite that. And as we get older, the rewriting is starting to happen with our younger generation. You know, they're rewriting the history books. They're rewriting what's being taught. They're rewriting this idea so that now, instead of you standing on your Blackness, you have to stand on this Americanism idea. And so it's very important that we have these conversations. And like I said, you know, I believe that you can have this one idea, but you have to see the reality for what it really is. And we understand what's happening now is we can get Black people to buy in to what we want history to be, how we perceive history to be, and for you to buy into that history. And I think that's the biggest threat we have now, because like you said, Denise, where are the voices? Where are the people that are standing up? Where are those who are willing? Because it used to be, when you go back to the civil rights movement, when you go back to the 50s, you had those people who were willing. Medgar Evers, Cheney, who were willing to say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I'm willing to die for it. Is that still happening? Or are people, now Black people are saying, you know what, it's better for me just to be, as they say, a good Negro and get along than to fight what's really happening?
Well, what makes the Black person say it's better for me to just go along? What makes them say that? And I believe the answer to that is capitalism, because what we have done is we've bought into the machine as consumers. What we should have done, or what we can do, and what we should do, is buy into the system as inventors, buy into the system as owners. That's what we should do. But instead, we spend all our money on their stuff, not even giving rise to the things that are in, the caller said, what's in our souls. And we are creators, we are inventors, we are innovators, we are all of those things. But instead of standing on that, we just spend all of our money, and we spend all of our money trying to conform to what they say we should look like, we should act like, we should be like what they say we should have. And so one of the reasons that our children, like, we can't blame everything on what the system is doing. The system of white inhumanity is absolutely wreaking havoc on our lives, no doubt about that, all of our lives, and particularly Black lives. But our children, if we would take care of them, if we would continue to eat the pot liquor that our grandmama and them used to eat so that we can heal our bodies rather than this medication that they're giving us, if we would teach them how to cook the cornbread, what we call it, hot water cornbread, if we would teach them how to work with their hands, if we would teach them how to raise their children, if we would teach them the religion of our ancestors, if we would do that work, then it would make a difference rather than allowing them to have to depend on the world to do what the world should do. That shouldn't be our position. We don't need the world to help us raise our children. We don't need the world to help us honor our ancestors. We don't need the world to remind us of what history is. We can do all of that ourselves. And so until we disentangle, until we divest from this system of, I got to be like them, I got to look like them, I got to live like them, until we realize that white is not right, I don't even know why we think that. Until we realize that and just stop for a moment, because we're too busy. Just stop for a moment, sit with yourself and listen to yourself and hear your soul. Then I think that we would be in a better position rather than waiting on them, because I don't care about them rewriting the textbooks, because we got other textbooks that we could be using. We could be teaching our children in our own schools. We could be doing all of that work. Nothing is stopping us from doing that except us. Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I'm just listening, but you're right.
Yeah, nothing is going to stop us. And so where does that drive come? Where is the drive going to come from? Because that's what Diane Reeves is saying. Diane Reeves says, listen, I know where my voice belongs. I know that I have a voice. I know that I am valuable. I know that I am worthy. I know that I am a contributor. This world would not be what it is if it were not for me. You are not going to make me think any less of myself, and definitely not going to make me think that just because I am Black. And so the Blackness that we have is not about saying, because some people are under the impression that we're playing a zero-sum game, that for people who say Black lives matter, that must mean that white lives don't. And that, again, is a trick of the enemy. It's a trick of the system, so that you can be distracted on stuff that shouldn't have to be distracted, that should not be a distraction. Just because you root yourself in who you are, that does not mean that you have to feel like you are better than somebody else. And so even when we talk about white folks, it's like, well, this is my heritage, this is my history. Okay, you can stand in your heritage, you can stand in your history, and you can know you evil at the same time. That doesn't have anything to do with who I am over here. So I'm not trying to compare myself. I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm not trying to figure out who's the best human. What I'm doing is saying, I know who I am. And I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of my history. I'm not ashamed of what my people went through. It's because of them that I can stand on their shoulders and say that I am who I am, and I'm not going to let you make me feel any kind of way about it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to carry the torch. I'm going to take hold of what they were working towards, what they were striving towards, and I'm going to keep running. I'm going to keep running because I know what the end is going to be. The end is going to be what we created to be, through our goodness and through our divinity. And if we could just get Black folks, Lord Jesus, to just stop and rethink and reimagine, unlearn and unremember, I think we'll be well on our way.
Well said, well said. And I think that's something that, going back to something I said earlier about the brainwashing, if we can unindoctrinate ourselves, then we can move forward.
And for some of y'all, that means y'all need to stop going to church. So thank you all so much for joining us for Community Voices. We have been live right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. If we want a world that is more just, that is more equitable, that is more inclusive, that is more peaceful, we are going to have to learn how to live and love differently. Your girl Lola is not going to be in the house today. She is handling some very important business, so she gave me the honor and the privilege of handling Jazzy Tuesday. So don't touch that dial. You've got 2 hours of jazz coming up right here on KABF 88.3 FM. I can't wait to take this journey with you. I'll be there as DJ Delight. See you soon.